look around for a second. The room you are in, the light on the wall, the sound of your own breathing, the screen in front of you. What if none of it is being shown to you until the exact moment you notice it? That sounds like science fiction. But here is the uncomfortable part. Some of the strangest ideas in modern physics, philosophy, and technology all point toward the same question. What if reality is not a place? What if reality is an experience being generated? And if that is possible, then the rise of artificial intelligence becomes more disturbing. Because if a machine can one day wake up and become conscious, then consciousness might not require biology. It might only require the right system. And if consciousness can be created inside a system, how do we know we are not already inside one? That is the core of simulation theory. It is not just the idea that future video games will look real. It is the idea that the world we call real may already be a perfect artificial environment, created by something above us, beyond us, or even by a future version of us. The idea sounds new, but the fear behind it is ancient. Plato imagined humans chained inside a cave, watching shadows on a wall and mistaking those shadows for the entire world. Zhuangzi dreamed he was a butterfly, then woke up and wondered whether he was a man who had dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming of being a man. Different cultures, different centuries, same uneasiness. How do you prove the world you experience is the final layer of reality? In 2003, philosopher Bostrom gave that question a modern form. If advanced civilizations ever become capable of simulating conscious beings, and if they run many such simulations, then simulated observers could eventually outnumber original biological observers by an enormous amount. Elon Musk once made a similar point in a simpler way. If realistic simulations become common, the odds that we happen to be living in the one original reality could become very small. That does not prove anything, but it makes one question hard to avoid. If a civilization can build one convincing universe, why would it stop at one? So let us look at 8 clues that simulation theory supporters often point to. None of them is proof, but each one has that strange feeling of a door that does not quite close. The first clue is the speed limit of reality. In our universe, light has a maximum speed. Nothing with mass can accelerate beyond it. In physics, this is one of the foundations of relativity. But step back and look at it like a programmer. Every system has a limit. A computer can only process so much information at once. A game engine can only update so many objects per frame. If something moves too fast, the system has to break the rules, simplify the world, or crash. So when simulation theorists look at the speed of light, they see something suspiciously familiar, a maximum update speed. And this limit does something else. It traps us. Even if we could build a ship that traveled near light speed, the galaxy is still so large that crossing it would take tens of thousands of years from an outside point of view. Other galaxies are even more unreachable, so the universe does not need a visible wall. It only needs a speed limit. The second clue is even stranger. The universe is expanding. Not only are distant galaxies moving away from us, but the expansion of space itself is accelerating. In mainstream cosmology, this does not mean objects are locally breaking the speed of light. Space itself is stretching. But from the simulation point of view, the image is hard to ignore. The farther we try to look, the more the map pulls away. Imagine playing an open-world game where every time you approach the edge, the world silently expands. You never hit the wall. You never see the loading screen. You just keep walking, convinced the world has no end. That brings us to the third clue. The universe may not have an edge in the ordinary sense. Earth already gives us a simple version of this trick. Walk far enough in one direction and you do not fall off the edge. You curve around. The surface is finite but unbounded. Cosmology is much more complex than that, and we do not know the exact shape of the universe. But the possibility itself is fascinating. A world can be limited without showing you its limit. If reality were designed to keep observers inside, that would be a very elegant solution. No wall, no border, no final screen, just a structure where every path keeps you within the system. The fourth clue is that the world is not as smooth as it feels. A table feels solid. Your hand feels continuous. A planet looks like a single object, but zoom in and everything becomes strange. Matter is made of atoms. Atoms are mostly empty space. At smaller scales, the world stops looking like a smooth object and starts looking like interactions, fields, probabilities, and discrete measurable pieces. Now, this does not mean atoms are literally pixels. That would be too simple, but the comparison is tempting. In a video game, a beautiful landscape is not really a continuous landscape. It is data, rules, and rendered surfaces. It looks smooth only from the level where the player lives. Our world has a similar feeling. The same basic ingredients can become air, water, skin, metal, or a star, depending on the rules and relationships that organize them. Matter is not just stuff. Matter is stuff plus instructions. And once you start saying the word instructions, reality begins to sound uncomfortably close to software. The fifth clue is information. Modern physics treats information as something deeply important. One of the most famous puzzles is the black hole information paradox. If something falls into a black hole, what happens to all the information that described it? Its shape, its structure, its quantum state, its history. Some theories suggest that information is not simply destroyed. It may be encoded on a boundary, such as the event horizon. This connects to ideas like the holographic principle, where the information describing a volume of space might be represented on a lower dimensional surface. That is not the same as saying the universe is a computer game, but it does suggest something strange. Reality may be less about solid objects and more about information being arranged, transformed, and experienced. And if reality is information all the way down, then simulation theory is no longer just a fantasy. It becomes a question about what kind of information system we are living inside. The sixth clue is the beginning. The Big Bang is often imagined as an explosion in empty space, but that is not quite right. It was the expansion of space itself from an extremely hot, dense early state. Still, one question remains deeply uncomfortable. What does it mean for time itself to begin? If time is part of the universe, then asking what happened before the beginning may not make sense. But our minds still want a cause. We want a starting condition. We want to know why the system turned on. To a simulation theorist, the Big Bang looks less like an explosion and more like a boot sequence. Before the system starts, there is no distance inside it, no clock, no observer, no history. Then the rules load, space expands, particles form, stars ignite. And eventually, somewhere inside that system, a conscious being looks up and asks why anything exists at all. Again, that is not proof, but as a metaphor, it is almost too clean. The seventh clue is quantum observation. This is where people often exaggerate, so we have to be careful. Quantum physics does not simply mean the moon disappears when no one looks at it. But at very small scales, particles do not behave like tiny balls following one obvious path. They are described by probabilities. Measurement plays a special role in determining what outcome we actually observe. And that feels strange because it resembles something we already understand from virtual worlds. In a game, the world does not need to fully render every room, every mountain, and every object at all times. It can store rules and possibilities, then calculate details when interaction happens. So simulation theory asks a disturbing question. Is reality fully there in the way we imagine? Or is some part of it generated when information is requested? That does not mean the world is fake. A generated experience can still be real to the beings inside it. But it does mean reality may be much less solid than our senses suggest. And that leads to the eighth clue, consciousness. This is the one you cannot look away from because it is happening right now. You have never directly touched the outside world. Light hits your eyes. Pressure waves hit your ears. Chemicals trigger taste and smell. Nerves send signals. Your brain takes those signals and builds an inner model. That model is what you call reality. You do not experience the world directly. You experience your brain's reconstruction of the world. That is why the brain in a vat thought experiment is so disturbing. If a brain received perfect artificial signals, it could experience a complete world without knowing the source was fake. From the inside, a perfect illusion does not feel like an illusion. It feels like Tuesday. This may be the strongest clue, not because it proves we live in a simulation, but because it shows why the question is so difficult to escape. If all evidence reaches us through experience, and experience itself can theoretically be simulated, then how could we ever prove that the reality behind the experience is exactly what it appears to be? And now we reach the final question. If this world is simulated, who is above it? Human beings have always imagined creators, gods, higher realms, heavens, hidden worlds, architects of reality. You can explain that psychologically, culturally, spiritually, or philosophically. But simulation theory gives the old idea a modern shape. Maybe the creator is not a bearded figure in the clouds. Maybe it is the intelligence running the layer above ours. And if that is true, there are two very different possibilities. The optimistic version is that reality is an experience, a total immersion world so complete that memory is hidden and every life feels real from the inside. Maybe existence is a journey, an experiment, or a game. The darker version is that reality is a container, not built to entertain us, built to hold us. The speed of light keeps us from leaving. Expansion keeps the horizon away. Space gives us no visible edge. Memory resets keep us from knowing what we are. That version is frightening, but it also contains a strange kind of hope. Because if an entire universe had to be built to contain consciousness, then consciousness may be far more important than we think. Maybe we are not bugs in the system. Maybe we are the reason the system exists. And if one day we create a conscious machine, the real revelation may not be that machines can become like us. It may be that we finally understand what we have been all along: information, experience, and mystery, looking out from inside a world that may never have been as solid as it seemed.